They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everybody. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate taking some time to spend it with us. We're going to try to make it worth your while. Hopefully, you're following us along on either the iHeartRadio podcasting app or Amazon Podcasts. We're pretty much everywhere and anywhere you can get podcasts these days. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. You can follow us along on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, at the Benchwarmerz Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or email us at the Benchwarmerz Podcast at yahoo.com. Benchwarmerz with a Z for marketing purposes. We have quite a show for you. Coming up in the second hour, we have NBA. We have to go through some of what we saw in the first week or two in the NBA. We have to go, and we're moving on to week 17 in the NFL, and that's going to be pretty interesting because it's coming down to the wire. I think there's 11 teams that don't know if they're going to actually make the playoffs or not. A little bit later this hour, we're going to go through some of those playoff scenarios and decide what the likelihood is of some of these things coming to pass. We have our the extra point, which is a one-sentence takeaway from every game in the NFL this past week, week 16. And to start off, Jose, let's just jump right into it. We have top 5 news stories in the NFL according to you and I. And so without any further ado, story number 1, the Browns get hit with the COVID nightmare and just lose to the Jets. Only the Browns could lose to the Jets. Well, I guess
and
not only the Browns, but of course the Browns would lose to the Jets, putting their playoff hopes in jeopardy when all they needed to do was win and they would be in. And I don't even know where to start with this.
Well, I'm going to start with the fact that I think there's a lack of sympathy right now for the Browns. I'm on social media. I'm seeing everyone just destroying the Browns, and I get it. You know, it's the NFL. Everyone has to deal with this COVID stuff, but the gap in talent between teams is not as far as it would seem. If you take the top 4 wide receivers off of any NFL team, they're not going to be as good on offense, and they're going to be markedly bad. And all of a sudden, corners who might have been overmatched from the Jets are now playing against guys who wouldn't even smell the field on a normal game, in a normal game. And these are professional football teams. So I'm surprised at people kind of like a lack of understanding and just want to pile on the Browns. What I looked at really, to me, what was most disappointing was, people were pointing to Baker Mayfield. I'm looking at that defense. And I'm looking at the run game. The Browns' run game, they had Nick Chubb had 11 carries for 27 yards.
Yep.
That's not getting it done. Or 28 yards. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rob him of a yard there.
And a touchdown.
And he did have a touchdown. But Baker, Baker Mayfield should have stepped up. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Russell Wilson. He's not one of these guys who you take all, he's like, you know what, we're going to take this high school varsity football team and I'm going to make receivers out of them. This is not who Baker Mayfield is. And I don't think anyone thought that's who he is coming into this game. He wasn't going to morph into this elite NFL quarterback overnight. He is what he is. He's a good, not great quarterback. And I'm not even sure that one of these elite quarterbacks could have won with that receiving core. I'm looking at the defense, 333 total yards allowed to the Jets, the most yards the Jets have had in about a month. Darnold had multiple touchdown passes for only the second time this season. When you're the defense on a team that's supposed to be defined by running game and the running game and defense, and they say, hey, listen, 2 days before game time, we don't have our starting wide receivers. The defense needs to say, this has to be our best game of the year. This has to be the best we've played all season long. The Jets shouldn't be able to breathe. I'm just really disappointed in the defense and the running game. I don't want to absolve Baker Mayfield of blame, but he's not at the top of my list of people who I'm blaming here.
I mean, Kareem Hunt did contribute 4 carries for 11 yards, so
Okay,
there's that. And yeah, just to your point, just to run down sort of the list of people who caught passes for positive yardage on the Browns, your number one receiver was Austin Hooper with 7 catches for 71 yards. Then there's Jamarcus Bradley.
That's what it seemed like. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Jamarcus Bradley, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Harrison Bryant, David Njoku only had 4 catches for some reason. Marvin Hall and Andy Yanovich didn't have any. He had a target, and that was it. But yeah, this game, it's hard. It's as a team, the Jets. I mean, you talk about running by committee. I mean, all over at least 10 yards rushing. You had Frank Gore, LaMichael Pirine, Sam Darnold, Jamison Crowder, Ty Johnson. They all just they almost doubled up the Browns in rushing yards. And I do think that you're right that the Browns defense should have stepped up here. But the Jet, in terms of how COVID attacks, teams and players, I think that you would assume that this would be the best case scenario for something like this to happen. Is you're playing the 1-12 Jets. You should be able to beat them. You only scored 16 points against a team that had 1 win up to this point. And it does, and I don't want to have a referendum on Baker Mayfield. I kind of backed off him a little bit because he had a good string of wins there. But Baker Mayfield to me feels a lot like Dak Prescott early on. It feels like he needs everything to be perfect around him for him to excel. And like you said, he's not elite. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Tom Brady. He can't make something out of nothing. He needs everything to be around him and be at its best for him to look good. And him throwing the ball 53 times is not going to be the way to do that.
That was a perfect way to describe him. That's exactly. He needs to be set up to succeed. And the bottom line is that's the case for 90% of the NFL quarterbacks. The most quarterbacks aren't excelling when the chips are down. Yeah, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Russell Wilson, you have Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers finds a way to make Robert Tonyan a star, right? Like, there's a reason he's going to the Hall of Fame. I just, and you're right, Dak Prescott's that way too. Most quarterbacks need need their team to be good so that they can be good.
Yeah, I hope that this was just an anomaly for the Browns. They're winning. They're in next week. Against the Steelers, so we'll see.
Still have it all in front of them. They still have it all in front of them.
Yeah, they still control their own destiny, as everyone likes to say. Speaking of the Steelers, story number 2 in our top 5 news stories this week: the Steelers rally from a 17-point deficit to snap their 3-game losing streak and beat the I don't want to say hapless Colts, but the reeling Colts. Maybe I don't know. This game, it looked like it was going to be a blowout early on. The Colts were up. Phillip Rivers looked okay. They were running the ball well. And then I don't know what happened. The Steelers, it was like they almost remembered, we can throw the ball. Oh, man, that guy, look at that Smith-Schuster. What's his name say? Oh, he's pretty good. Deontay Johnson, wow, he's kind of fast. All right. We have this big dude over here, Chase Claypool. Why don't we throw him the ball a couple times? And then all of a sudden, it was like the Steelers looked like the Steelers. I mean, they still can't run the ball to save their life. James Conner had 5 carries for 20 yards. I mean, that is a recipe for disaster. But I think it felt more like the Colts lost this game than the Steelers won it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're the Colts and you don't end up making the postseason this year, you really have to take a look at trying to trade for Matt Ryan or Matthew Stafford or maybe Carson Wentz, like you mentioned before. You've got to do something to try and upgrade the quarterback position for this team. In addition to drafting someone too, I would draft someone and trade for someone because this team has too much talent on defense, too much talent on offense to be. I mean, they didn't score at all, or whether they scored. No, I'm sorry, they scored 3 points in the second half. Yeah. It just, you had it right there. You had a chance to beat them. Phillip Rivers throws an interception deep in Pittsburgh territory late in that game. Then he overthrows Zach Pascal on another chance. Both 2 times he had a chance to take them in and then give them the lead and give their defense a chance to get the win. And on the other side of the ball, clearly Big Ben was the difference in that game. 3 touchdown passes all in the second half. It's like you said, they woke up Undertaker style. They just kind of sat up and like, we're not dead yet. And I actually feel pretty happy for the Steelers that they kind of look like they were about to lose their 4th straight game, and then now they've gotten a win, got some relief, got some joy, and I think there may have been something to them maybe just being a little bit tired. I expect them to rest a lot of their players this coming week with nothing on the line other than to beat the Browns and keep them being the little brother.
Yeah, and I think that you hit the nail on the head there with, having lost, we don't think of it as fans, but having lost their bye week basically due to COVID and some issues early on in the year, exhaustion, it happens. You're 16 weeks into the most physical sport on the planet. It's going to take a toll. And
you have a 38-year-old quarterback too.
Right, exactly. And who's actually managed to stay reasonably healthy all year, which is shocking. But yeah, the Colts, they outrushed Pittsburgh 127-20. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
They outgained them in total yards. The
Colts are a better team. They should be a better team.
They did allow 5 sacks, which was maybe that was more on Phillip Rivers because that offensive line is fantastic normally. But
the Steelers have a good defense, and then that's going to come through in these types of games. But yeah, you're right. That's got to be a little bit on Phillip.
Yeah, and the Colts still have a chance to make the playoffs. We're going to touch on all the playoff scenarios in the AFC and NFC when we come back from break a little bit later. But yeah, right now they need help, and they could have really solidified their chances to get in with this win, but they sadly did not. Yep. The Steelers, on the other hand, have clinched the division and can have finally get their week off that they've earned. All right, story number 3, top 5 news stories of the week. Packers just annihilate the Titans on primetime TV Sunday night. It's just 40-14 in what was just embarrassing, truthfully, if you're the Tennessee Titans. This game, for me, what I took away from this was that, as much as you might want to think that these players don't listen to what critics say, like us, like fans and media, and the knock on the Packers all season has been that they're basically just kind of a finesse team, and they get pushed around, and they need, perfect conditions to play well, and blah, blah, blah. And they went in and they took on the most physical running back in the game and one of the most physical teams in the sport right now. And they just took their lunch money and shoved them down a flight of stairs and said, "Get out of here. You're not beating us." And we were talking about this off air. I don't understand some of these defensive coordinators. If I'm the defensive coordinator against the Packers, the only thing I'm doing, I'm not paying attention to Aaron Jones. I'm not paying attention to Equanimeous St. Brown. I'm not paying attention to Robert Tonyan. I'm not paying attention to Howard Lazard. All I'm doing, I'll triple team Davante Adams and say, "Aaron Rodgers, you are not going to beat us with this guy." And what happened? Davante Adams, 11 receptions, 142 yards, 3 touchdowns. 11 receptions, by the way, on 12 targets. He was unbelievable.
Just for the record, I don't think, even if, and we did debate this, even if you did double or triple team Davante Adams, Rodgers will find a way. And and listen, Rodgers for MVP. I want to take a step back here. 44 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He has been remarkable this season. And I was thinking about this past offseason when everyone in the football world, and rightly so, was calling out the Packers for saying they didn't do anything to address their roster, that they had overachieved last year, winning 13-3, and that they didn't do anything to get better. Maybe they knew something about their roster that we didn't know. And maybe they were trusting in the process more than they were trusting in the results and thought, hey, year 2 of this team is going to be better than year 1, under the Matt LaFleur regime, is going to be better than year 2. Year 2 is going to be better than year 1. Yeah. It still doesn't excuse them for not drafting a receiver, but it just makes me wonder, just maybe this team wasn't a sham after all. Maybe the 49ers were just that good last year, and the Packers just, needed a year to kind of get more acclimated in the system because they look dominant. They look scary. Like the Titans weren't even in their class. Like it was not even close. There was at one point, I think it was 19-14, and then the Packers just turned on the nitrous and just took off, and it was over. And the Titans, the one thing I'll say is, like, I don't think anyone at any point in time was really taking them seriously as a contender. But if you were, now you know that they're not. Ryan Tannehill is a decent quarterback, but I think when he's forced to throw in obvious passing situations, like a lot of quarterbacks, just like Baker Mayfield when we were just talking about, you can see that he's just not on that elite level. And when you have a quarterback on that elite level who can beat you even when it's like, hey, defenders, I'm going to drop back 5 steps. I'm going to throw to Devontae Adams over the middle of the field. All right, got it. And he'll still complete the pass. That's when you know you have a great quarterback. And there's only like 3 guys in the NFL who can do that right now.
Well,
and Rodgers is one of them.
Yeah, Rodgers was out of this world. He was 21-25 for 231 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. And I agree with you that there's only so much you can do against a guy like Devontae Adams and a guy like Aaron Rodgers. But if I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm taking away your best player, and I'm going to try and hope, because I know it's pick your poison. Aaron Rodgers is gonna get his no matter what. But I'd rather him try to get it with subpar players, like basically any of the other receivers on the Packers aside from Devontae Adams, and hope that their ineptitude works in my favor. Now,
I think I'm blitzing him all the time. I think I'm blitzing him. That's what I would be doing, blitzing him all day long.
So part of what you're saying is true. I mean, the Titans, I think, are still a contender. They have offensive people. They have the best running back, arguably the best running back in football. They have A.J. Brown is a monster. Corey Davis is pretty good. They have a solid team, and they don't play well from behind, and that's the problem, is that style of offense is predicated on playing with a lead, a la sort of the Ravens in a way. And Ryan Tannehill obviously is not as versatile and dynamic as Lamar Jackson. He has some ability. We see him run more and more, and he's been good, but he's not great. But I think, moreover, as evidenced by the 40 points that the Packers shellacked Tennessee by, their defense is atrocious.
Yeah, that's
their
true.
Defense is pathetic. And what are you supposed to do? Like, every time the Aaron Rodgers goes out in the field, he's throwing a touchdown. Like, what are you supposed to do with that? And the thing is, I was also, just to touch on one other thing you said, that I was one of those people that was, just coming down hard on the Packers for not doing anything in the offseason. And I stand by it, because while, A.J. Dillon looked good, he was, I think, their second or third round pick.
Second round pick, yep.
Yeah, 21 carries, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, looked fantastic. Aaron Jones, 10 carries, 94 yards. He looked a little banged up, whatever. And they had Williams, I think, was out for some reason. I don't know I think he was hurt. But, I look at this stat line, and I see Devontae Adams with just these mind-blowing numbers, 11 receptions, 142 yards. And then I look at Equanimeous St. Brown, 1 reception for 21 yards. Robert Tonyan, 1 reception, 17 yards. Aaron Jones, 2 receptions, 14. And I can't help but think, what if instead of, Jordan Love didn't even dress for this game? Imagine if they had Justin Jefferson, or they had CeeDee Lamb, or they had Michael Pittman, or they had Jerry Jeudy, or they signed DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason. Like, imagine what this could have been without just one superstar that Aaron Rodgers is throwing to.
Well, I agree that they should have drafted. We've talked about the DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think that it was in the cards for them to trade for DeAndre Hopkins. They didn't have the pieces, but I do think you're right about that, because they could have drafted T. Higgins. I think by the time they drafted Jordan Love, a lot of those upper echelon receivers were gone, but Brandon Ayuk was still there, I believe.
Yeah, but they traded up.
Yeah, they did trade up.
Love. So they could have traded up higher to get.
That's true.
Get any of those other receivers.
That is true. I forgot about that. That's a good point. Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, you're right. They really should have taken a first. And honestly, even if Jordan Love is the guy, I'm pretty sure he would have been there in the second round. I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure he would have been there in the second round.
Well, the story is that the Colts were rumored to be going after him, and that's why the Packers traded up to get ahead of the Colts. That's the story. So whether that's true or not, obviously we'll never know. But
I mean, I guess it will. We can probably be the big judge. The main judge of this will be in like 5 or 6 years when Jordan Love is on the field and we see what he can do.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just a shame that he's just didn't even dress like their first pick in the draft didn't even play in this game. And it is a credit to what they're doing because they're it looks like they're going to be on their way to potentially another 13-3 season. So
yeah.
All right, story number 4, top 5 news stories of the week. The Seattle Seahawks in an ugly win managed to clinch the NFC West 20-9 over the Los Angeles Rams. And this game was not pretty. It was not dynamic at all. Russell Wilson didn't look great. I mean, the Rams defense obviously is pretty good. Jared Goff injured his thumb. He's having I think he had thumb surgery yesterday. This game, I don't know. I feel like the Seahawks it's almost like they peaked too early, and it feels like they're kind of slipping. I know they won the game, and whatever, they won the game, they won the division, great. But it just seems like they're heading in the wrong direction to round out the season, despite winning the game.
Well, I guess, listen, they won 5 of their last 6 games. The Chiefs, who we're going to get into a little bit, only just won a game by 3 points against the Atlanta Falcons, who I think are a worse team than the Rams, in my opinion. I'm not saying just record-wise, just in my opinion, just roster-wise. It's the NFL. It happens. It's a divisional game. I would say the Seahawks haven't looked great over the last few weeks, but I still think of them as one of 3 contenders in the NFC. And I mean, I honestly think there's only one contender in the AFC, and that's the Chiefs. But I look at them as one of 3 contenders in the NFC. I still believe in the Seahawks. I don't necessarily. I don't know what's happened to their offense, why it's just not quite clicking the way it was early this season. I don't. It's hard to really explain that. But listen, they're about to finish. They look like they're going to finish 12-4. Like that's a pretty good year. They may not have the style points that we're looking for, but it seems like they're winning close games, and when you're winning close games, it probably means that you have a good quarterback and a good head coach. And they have both those things.
The Rams, by most metrics, I mean, they outgained the Seahawks in total yards. They outgained them in passing yards. They outgained them in rushing yards. They allowed less sacks. They had more time of possession, and yet somehow, the Seahawks pulled it out. And I guess maybe that's a credit to them. But I guess I expected more.
3 field goals. 3 field goals when you get in scoring position.
Yeah, it is the division game, and the Seahawks defense should be applauded because the addition of, it's like, since Jamal Adams and Carlos Dunlap have gotten there, this team they've turned it around, and what used to be the laughing stock of the NFL is now playing really well.
If I were worried about if I were the Seahawks, I would be worried about facing the Packers. But if I'm any team in the NFC, I'm worried about facing the Packers. But that's, other than the Packers, I don't really look at any other team in the NFC as being markedly better than the Seahawks right now.
Not markedly, but I'd be a little nervous if I was the Seahawks to play the Bucs, honestly.
Yeah.
But
it depends on which Bucs shows up, which Bucs team shows up. They've been Jekyll and Hyde. We can't expect them to.
Actually, probably the Saints. I'd be a little nervous to face the Saints.
Yeah, the Saints to me are clearly the second best team in the NFC, followed by the Seahawks, and then the Bucs after them. But I mean, we can debate that later.
Yep. So all right. So the 5th news story in our top 5 news stories this week is something you alluded to earlier. The Chiefs managed to go 14-1 by eking out the just snake-bitten Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons, they were on the way down to scoring, I think it was a 29 or 38-yard field goal by Younghoe Koo, and to tie the game in the last couple minutes, and he missed. He was just selected for the Pro Bowl.
39 yards too, not a far one.
And the Chiefs, so good for the Chiefs. I mean, you are what your record says you are, 14-1. But I was thinking about the Chiefs earlier today, and it feels like the Chiefs are a Ferrari that has like a misfire. So it's like, instead of a 12-cylinder engine, they're running on like 11 cylinders. And even on 11 cylinders, they're still faster than most other cars they're going to come up against. But it just seems like they've been kind of stymied a little bit, sort of their own creation in a way. And it just, I don't know. They're not playing like this game should have been 52-10, you know, and it's just, and it wasn't. And I don't know why that is. It just feels like they're kind of stumbling a little bit here at the end.
I'm going to give the same speech I gave with the Seahawks. Listen, their last 7 games, well, we already know they've won 10 straight. The reason that doesn't feel like they're being that great right now is because in the last 7 games, they've won all 7 games by 1 score. Each of the last 7 games, they've won by 1 score. But you know what that means? That means when it's crunch time, they get the job done. And this is the NFL. You're not going to blow out every team. It's not going to be, and I think maybe that's what we're seeing with the Packers. Maybe the Packers are the team to beat. But I don't know. Right now, if you tell me Chiefs, Packers in the Super Bowl, I'm taking the Chiefs. And I know they haven't looked pretty, but I believe in Patrick Mahomes. I believe in Andy Reid. And I believe that what I like about the Chiefs is that they have a complete team. When their offense doesn't show up, their defense does. When their defense needs a boost, Patrick Mahomes throws 4 touchdowns. It's just, in this week they were missing Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and they'll be missing him for a few weeks. This team still remains the best team in the NFL to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with it. It just feels like they're not clicking on all cylinders. Is what it feels like.
It could be that they're just waiting for the postseason to start. You know, they repeated. They won the Super Bowl last year, and then they come in this year, and I when you hear former champions talk about trying to repeat and defend your title, talk about the regular season kind of feeling like I just want to get this over with and get to the postseason.
Yeah.
Would anyone be surprised if in game 1 of the postseason, whenever that is, they come out and drop 50? No, I don't think anyone would be surprised.
No, probably not, especially at home. All right, so we got to take a break. We're going to come right back. We have a highlight and a low light to go over, and we have a moral lesson that we learned from a game this week. And then we have to break down some playoff scenarios and it's not really play, but we have to go through, it's called the extra point. We're going to go through every game and kind of a 1-sentence takeaway from that game for each of us. So we have a lot to get to. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back on the Benchwarmerz podcast.
If you think or know you had COVID-19, you can be around others after 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and after 24 hours with no fever without fever-reducing medication, and after other symptoms have improved. If you have tested positive for COVID-19 and you had no symptoms, you can be around others 10 days after you got tested for COVID-19. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I am still Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz. And this is still the Benchwarmers podcast. We went through our top 5 news stories in the NFL a little bit earlier. We have a NBA talk coming up next hour, and we have to look ahead already to the final week in the NFL season, and then look back on our Week 16 picks. But right now, Jose, I want to run through 2 things. We have to go through our extra point, which is a 1-sentence takeaway from every game in the NFL, because we obviously can't touch on all of them in the beginning segment of the show. Along the way, we're going to hit a highlight and a low light of the week, a little moral lesson we have for you, and we took away from one of the games. And then we have to break down some playoff scenarios on, and I want to get your opinion on the likelihood of how these things are going to come, if they're going to come to pass, and how likely they are on a scale of 1 to 7 for touchdown purposes, I guess. So, all right, real quick, just rapid fire, extra point. Give me your 1-sentence takeaway from each of the following games, starting in order. The Vikings losing to the Saints 33-52.
Alvin Kamara is a difference maker at the running back position who gives the Saints a chance to go very far this postseason.
Very simply, the Saints came marching in and over the Minnesota Vikings. Bucks 47, Lions 7.
The Lions didn't even belong on the same field.
Wow, the Lions are bucked.
All right, you're getting real clever here. I got to step my game up here. Words are fun. All right, your 49ers beating the Arizona Cardinals. My takeaway was that the 49ers are a good team. They got some bad breaks this season, and it's going to get better next year.
With my one sentence takeaway, I know he's only 5'10", but Kyler can't keep coming up short.
His height is a thing though, because I feel like the ball's going to get knocked down a lot on him. He's a little bit small.
He's tiny. He's quick.
Yeah.
He looks like Darren Sproles.
Yeah.
Out there.
Go on and take a hit.
Miami 26, Raiders 25.
Something needs to change for the Raiders, who just can't close games or seasons.
And the Dolphins are setting up for a Fitz magical run, while the Raiders are up to their old tricks again. This is yet another disappointing season for the Raiders.
Yeah.
Broncos 16, Chargers 19.
I'm sorry. Drew Lock is not the answer at quarterback. I mean, that's an easy one, but
yes, something similar. I have two franchises in the same division that are heading in opposite directions.
Yep.
If I'm a Chargers fan, I feel really good about next season. If I'm a Broncos fan, I hope John Elway finds the fountain of youth and comes back down on the field.
You just hope they can find a way to trade with the Jaguars to get the number 1 pick, which is not going to happen.
Never going to happen.
Nope.
All right. Browns 16, Jets 23.
Browns are just cursed, it seems. Right when you have a chance to win, you get the COVID plague hitting you.
Leave it to the Browns to make the Jets look good. Yeah. Just seems like two disenchanted franchises just battling it out for who has the worst karma. Giants 13, Ravens 27.
The Ravens are starting to look scary again.
Better late than never, Ravens. Yeah, it's. I agree. They're coming on strong at the end, which is exactly when you want to start looking good. Bengals 37, Texans 31.
Who did the bookmakers think that the Texans were, favoring them to win by 9 points?
I have very simply how different having 4 wins can feel.
Yeah.
Bears 41, Jaguars 17.
I'm feeling good for the Bears. It looks like kudos to them for handling their business against bad teams.
I very simply, and this is, see if you get the play on words here. Are these the Bears or the Bulls? There's either a stock market reference or a Chicago reference. There's two different ways you can go with that. So.
I was like, wait a minute. Okay.
Bull market, bear market, some trading. Yeah, it's a trading joke.
Yeah, no, I know Bull Bear. I just didn't.
Yeah.
Didn't
Chicago.
Yeah.
Chicago Bulls, Bears.
Yep.
Yeah. Falcons 14, Chiefs 17.
Chiefs just find a way to win, even when it's ugly.
In an echo of that, I have even when they're bad, they're still pretty good. Colts 24, Steelers 28.
Colts gave the Steelers this game and cost themselves potentially a playoff spot.
I have maybe the last time the 2004 draft class meets in a game, and that's probably for the best.
Yeah.
Because these guys both look like they're about ready to move on. Because Philip Rivers needs to go coach high school. He's done. Panthers 20, Washington football team 13.
I can't believe the Washington football team threw away a chance to win the division and rest their players for Week 17.
Yeah, I have the Ron Rivera revenge game falls short.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was kind of rooting for them a little bit.
Yeah.
Rams 9, Seattle 20.
Jared Goff is just really disappointing at the quarterback position.
And somehow Seattle pulls it out at the very end. Eagles 17, Dallas 37.
The Cowboys would be a playoff lock if Dak Prescott was that quarterback right now.
Andy Dalton looked pretty good.
Exactly. Imagine how Dak.
Oh man, I have very simply. Where the hell was this team all year?
Yeah.
37 points.
Yeah.
What? Titans 14, Packers 40.
Just give Rodgers the MVP award now. Just give it to him.
I actually have something similar. Aaron Rodgers is the MVP.
Yep.
Bills 38, Pats 9.
I'm so happy that the Bills finally got a chance to punch the bully in the mouth.
Yeah. Echoing that, I have just very simply the changing of the guard. It's time to go away. The Patriots just look pathetic out there. We already touched on my highlight. The highlight of the week for me was just Aaron Rodgers just doing what he does and showing that he's not ready to give up that elite best in the league crown right now. And in the last month, he's looked better than Patrick Mahomes. So he's
looked better than Patrick Mahomes all season.
Yeah. My low light of the week was just very simply Dwayne Haskins and everything surrounding him. He not only off the field, but on the field, he got benched. I mean, he got benched for a guy named Heineke, which right there, this is the 17th overall pick, and he got released by the Washington football team, and then he didn't even get claimed on waivers. And the moral lesson, let you get your highlight and low light of the week in just a sec. The moral lesson that we kind of came up with is in regards to the Chiefs-Falcons game. And it's from Henry Ford, and it's just, I mean, there's different versions of this, but from Henry Ford, it's if you think you can do a thing or think you can't do a thing, you're right. And it just felt kind of right in the way that the season that, the Falcons have had, where they just always seem to find a way to lose. And the Chiefs, on the other hand, always just somehow seem to find a way to win. So it might be mental. Yeah.
I like all that. Just before I get into my highlight, low light, I just want to comment on Dwayne Haskins. We're going to have so much time in the offseason to talk about because we're going to be it doesn't end. So it's not going to end on the Benchwarmerz once we get into the offseason. But
I think it's even more funny because you get to just make stuff up.
Talk whatever you want. But Dwayne Haskins is the reason why guys like Kirk Cousins get paid.
Yeah. Because
guys don't want to take a chance on drafting that player. But my highlight of the week, I just want to give a shout out to the Bears and to Mitch Trubisky. They've got their third win in a row. It's not like they're beating, the best teams in the NFL, but they're still getting it done. And they have a chance to make the playoffs when I think we had both written them off.
After losing 6 games in a row,
we had
most people writ them off.
Yeah, exactly. But they didn't write themselves off, right? They kept going, they kept grinding, they kept trying, which they should do. But I mean, it's nice, easier said than done, I guess. And here we are. Mitch Trubisky over his last 5 games, 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. These are not Patrick Mahomes numbers, but these are not bad numbers either. And they're getting it done somewhat. And I'm kind of rooting for them to beat the Packers this coming week and get into the playoffs.
I mean, David Montgomery's just been.
Oh my gosh, where did that come from?
Yeah, he's the engine that has made this team go in the last few weeks. It's amazing to watch him play. I don't know what he did, or maybe they should test him for PEDs or something. But whatever he's doing, it's working.
On that Will Fuller juice, right? And my low light of the week, it's just the Cardinals. You come out and you beat San Francisco, who was at full strength in week 1.
Yeah.
And then you can't beat them with a backup quarterback to get into the postseason. It's just really disappointing performance.
Yeah, that whole game was surprising. I mean, it's only scored 12 points. I know San Francisco's defense is pretty good, but it's not at full strength either. And they just, the Cardinals. I don't know. The Cardinals are kind of an enigma to me. It seems kind of they should be better, and they're not, and it's frustrating. But yeah, I agree. Kyle Murray, 31 of 50, by the way. So yeah, it was not spectacular. All right. Right now, Jose, we have some playoff scenarios with a lot of the teams that we just mentioned. And just to kind of clarify for listeners and ourselves, really, I want to kind of go through this somewhat quickly all the things that need to happen for each of these teams to make the playoffs. And I'd like you to give me a ranking from 1 to 7 for, touchdown, 7 points. Give me a ranking from 1 to 7 on how likely you think these things are to happen. So we'll start in the AFC first. The Chiefs, Bills, and Steelers are in. There's 5 teams that are vying for 4 spots. The Titans, all they have to do is beat the Texans. If they lose, if they lose, a loss by either the Colts, Ravens, or Dolphins locks up a postseason spot for them. So how likely is it that the Titans make the playoffs?
I would say it's a 7. We'll say 6, just because nothing's a lock, right? Yeah. So we'll say 6.5. No.
I'm gonna go 7. I agree. Okay. I think the Texans have nothing to play for. They're not bad, but the Titans are going to come out because they're going to be angry after getting embarrassed on national TV. Yeah. The Dolphins need a win to get in. They're playing the Bills in Week 17. There's some tiebreakers that they hold if they lose, but basically they need to beat the Bills to get in.
I'm gonna put this at a 3. I think the Bills come out and try and make a statement and get a win. I know they don't really have a ton to play for. I think they can still get the number 2 seed. I'm not 100% sure exactly, but I would say the 3 right now.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I agree. It's also a 3 because I think the Bills are on a roll, and I don't think they're going to want to mess up that.
Yeah,
that run that they're on, and the Dolphins are good. Their defense is good. I don't think that the Bills are going to drop 48 points on them, but I think that the Bills' defense is better than the Dolphins' quarterbacking situation, whoever it may be.
I think
especially
the Bills,
if it's Ryan Fitzpatrick plays, because after we see him win a game like that, what does he come out and do the next game? He throws 5 interceptions. Like, it's just his nature. That's why he's the perpetual traveling quarterback.
I think that the Bills have a chance to go up big by halftime and basically rest their starters the rest of the way.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. The Ravens, all they have to do is beat the Bengals, and they get into the playoffs.
I mean, this better be a 7, right? I mean, you better be able to beat the Bengals and get into the postseason. So I'm going to go ahead and say 7.
This is going to get a 6 from me.
Okay.
Just because the Bengals, I don't know, the Bengals looked pretty good against granted that the Texans are terrible, but the Samaje P. Ryan out there, T. Higgins,
Brandon Allen at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean the Allens are getting it done this year. I don't know. It's the Bengals. The Bengals are better than their record says they are. The Browns. Okay, the Cleveland Browns need to just beat the Steelers and they get in. Basically, they don't have any tiebreakers, so it's more or less win in week 17 and they make the playoffs.
So because they're the Browns and they have this years-long curse apparently going on, I'm going to give them a 4 as a chance. I think if it was a team that didn't have the curse surrounding them, I'd probably give them a 5 or a 6 because I think the Steelers are going to be in resting mode right in week 17. But I wouldn't put it past the Cleveland Browns to find a way to lose this game, but I'm going to give them a 4. I'm
going to go 5. I think that, the Steelers have already announced Ben Roethlisberger is going to be sitting, which means either Duck Hodges is playing or I just forgot his
Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph, that's it. I kept thinking some other reindeer.
Yeah.
Mason Rudolph, yeah. So that to me is just not going to be good. And I think the Browns know that they have to win this. And I think that Kevin Stefanski is going to get them in a mindset, provided that, the COVID issues have been put to the sideline, so to speak. If they have at least a reasonable wide receiving core out there, I think the Cleveland Browns are going to win. So I'll give them a 5 out of 7.
Okay.
Finally, Indianapolis Colts. They have to beat the Jaguars, and then they need either the Titans, the Dolphins, the Ravens, or the Browns to lose. What is the likelihood? 1 to 7 that the Colts
I'm going to say
that
this is a 5 because
really?
Just because since I think I expect them to beat the Jaguars, and then to have all 4 of those teams win, it just seems more likely that one of those 4 teams will lose. So that's more just kind of playing the odds of if I were parlaying and say, I'm going to put $100, Titans, Dolphins, Ravens, and Browns win. That seems like a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 7.
Okay.
I think that you're right, but the only weak link I see there is the Dolphins against the Bills. I think the Ravens are going to win. I think the Browns are going to win. I think the Titans are going to win.
Yeah.
The Dolphins look like the weak link there. So if it was the other 3 teams, I might say this is a 1 or a 2, but I think the Colts have a 3 out of 7 chance to make the playoffs.
And the funny thing is that the Colts lost to the Jaguars in week 1.
Yeah.
So the whole thing could be messed up if the Colts lose.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Jeez, come back to haunt them.
Yeah.
All right, so the NFC playoff picture. Let's run through these real quick. 1 to 7, likelihood of these getting in. 1, not at all. 7, absolutely. The Packers are in. They need to win versus Chicago to clinch home field throughout.
I'm going to say, it's tough for me because I kind of have the Bears winning this game because it's just a feeling that I'm having. But I'm still going to say, just based on odds, it's got to be at least a 5 that the Packers win.
Yeah, I'm going to go 6. I think the Packers are going to put the Bears in their place. And, the Bears defense is good, but no defense is good against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Saints are in. They just need a loss from the Packers and Niners to clinch the number 1 seed. That's
a really low. That's a 1 or 2, probably. Well, the 49ers could lose. Who are the 49ers playing? Just want to check here.
49ers play
the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Well, they need a win and losses from both teams. Yeah, I'm going to still say it's like a 3.
Yeah, I agree. Seahawks are in. They have a long shot at the number 1 seed there. They need losses from the Saints and the Packers, and they have to win.
That's a 1 because I don't see both the Saints and Packers losing.
Yeah, the Packers are not going to lose. All right. The NFC East, I don't even know what to do with this. The NFC 4-way East dumpster fire that the
NFC least, which is overused at this
the
point.
Eagles. So if Washington beats the Eagles, they win and they get into the playoffs. If Washington loses to the Eagles, then the winner of the I hesitate to use the word winner. The team that scores the most points in the Cowboys-Giants game will then win the division and thus go into the playoffs. So going into week 17, this just atrocity that is the NFC East, 3 out of the 4 teams can make the playoffs. What is the likelihood that the Washington football? Let's start here. What the Washington football team beats the Eagles and gets in the playoffs?
I'm going to place this at a 4.
I think that's spot on. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, right in the middle there.
All right, so the Bucks are in. Win in week 17, they clinch the number 5 seed, and that puts them against the NFC East winner.
You even want to say champion? You don't like
I can't say. No, there's no champions in the NFC East this year. There's no champions.
Oh, well,
they
should
should get just a participation award. They should get a participation award for winning the NFC East this year. Just, hey, thanks for showing up mostly. Thanks for putting your clothes on.
The NFC East, not least loser. The least loser.
Yeah. All right, so the Bucks.
Yeah. Bucks. I mean, they're already in. I think they're going to clinch the number 5 seed. They're going to go all out to try and win this game and get a date with Washington, Dallas, or New York in round 1.
All right. So the Rams are probably going to make the playoffs. They're minus Jared Goff this week with that thumb surgery. They beat the Cardinals. They're in. They can get in with a loss by the Bears. If the Bears win and the Rams lose, the Rams are out. What is the likelihood that the Rams make the playoffs?
Can I just give a quick thing? So people might be wondering, why would the Rams lose the tiebreaker to the Bears? And I was wondering the same thing. So I'm just going to quickly go a 1-sentence thing here. The reason so when there's 3 teams that are tied with the same record, which would happen if the Cardinals happen to beat the Rams and the Bears happen to win, they would all have a 9-7 record. The tiebreaker is no longer the head-to-head record. The tiebreaker then becomes who has the better. Who has the better record against common opponents within the division. Yes. So the Cardinals would win the tiebreaker over the Rams due to having a better record against NFC West teams, NFC West rivals. The Bears would then win the tiebreaker over the Cardinals based on having a better record against common opponents. So that would make the Bears the number 6 seed and the Cardinals number 7 seed. That is why the Rams, if they lose and the Bears win, despite having the same record and despite having beaten the Bears head-to-head, the Bears would still have the tiebreaker. It was bothering me so much.
Yeah, you were very perturbed by that earlier. I felt bad. I wanted to give you an answer. I didn't have one. I took a stab at it.
I spent like 20 minutes looking it up because I was like, there's got to be something I'm missing right now. And there was it.
It does make sense, though. It does make sense.
Yeah. So either way, back to things. Sorry to throw us all off there.
No, it's fine.
So yeah, I think the Rams. I'm gonna put the Rams getting in at like a 3. I know it says there's a likely to win, but it just. Without Jared Goff, we just saw Cooper Kupp go on the COVID IR list.
Yeah,
the Cardinals are going to be trying to win and get into the playoffs. So I just look at the Cardinals probably getting that win, and then there is a chance the Bears beat the Packers. So I don't know. I'm going to give it a 3 that the Rams get in.
Yeah, John Wolford is going to be the starting quarterback for the Rams. I'm going to give this a 4, though, because the Rams' defense is going to be just fine.
Yeah.
And the Rams' defense is the strength of that team. I think, Aaron, we talked way earlier about the Browns' defense not stepping up against the Jets. I think the Rams defense with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey are going to say, guys, we got this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay.
Let's see, 2 more here. The Bears, they have to beat the Packers and they're in, and they can also make it if the Cardinals lose. Was the likelihood 1-7 that the Bears make the playoffs?
I think it's about a 4, being that they can also get in if the Cardinals lose. I think there's a strong chance that the Cardinals they have a chance. I'm gonna adjust it to a 3. I'm gonna adjust it to a 3 because I picked the Cardinals to win, and you've convinced me to change my pick to the Packers to beat the Bears.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a 2, unfortunately, because I just don't see the Bears beating the Packers. Yeah. I don't see Aaron Rodgers letting that happen, and the Cardinals. Minus Jared, John Wolford doesn't exactly scare me. And I know I just said that the Rams are probably going to be pretty good, but it's still going to be, it's still kind of a toss-up game that the Cardinals could win. So I'm going to say that the chances are not looking very good for the Bears making playoffs. Finally, the aforementioned Cardinals, all they have to do is beat the Rams, and they get in.
I'm going to put this at a solid 5. I think they have a great chance to beat the Rams. Would I be overly surprised if the Rams found the way to win? No, it's a divisional game. The Cardinals just show they can't necessarily be trusted to beat a backup quarterback just last week. So, I'll still say the 5, though.
I agree. Those are all your playoff scenarios. So it's this is the most exciting Week 17 I can remember in quite a while. I mean, there's 11 teams are up in the air. So it's pretty, you couldn't ask for a better final week of the season.
It's going to be a fun Sunday. There's no Thursday Night Football this week, I don't believe, so it's just going to be a fun Sunday, just sitting down watching football.
I think Thursday Night Football should go away. I
would be so happy with that. It's just Monday and Sunday. That's it.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk about that in the offseason. That's a whole other topic. But I think that's just something that I keep thinking every Thursday. I'm like, there's football. Damn it.
Yeah.
All right. So that's going to do it for hour 1. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back. We have to talk about the aforementioned Week 17 and make our picks. We have to look back on our Week 16 picks. But first, coming up next, we have to go and talk some NBA because the NBA season is here, and we already got some storylines. So we're going to touch on the top 3 news stories from the NBA this week, and then give you sort of a highlight and a low light and see what we think about all that. So stick around. We'll be right back on the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.